The Gynergy Effect, where energy meets intention and transformation begins.
We're your hosts, Garin and Yesi, partners in life, love, and purpose.
Here to share the tools, truth, and stories that helped us build a life from the inside out.
Whether you're seeking deeper health, conscious relationships, or your next level of purpose,
you're in the right place. Welcome to another episode of the Gynergy Effect. I'm your host, Garin, and this is...
Yesi.
Yeah, me and Yesi are so excited, as you can tell, to be here today. And we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a review from my perspective today on a book that one of them that I love. We love reading. We read a lot of books. Outwitting the Devil by the legend himself, Napoleon Hill. What's special about this book is it took 50 years for them to review it or release it, maybe over 50 years for them to release this book, because some of the stuff and principles that they said in it regarding education, religion, and some of the other aspects were so controversial. And the devil himself said, you will probably not release this book. So let's get started. What we're going to do, the format, Yesi, the lovely, beautiful Yesi over here, is just going to drop some questions. And I've read this book a couple times, but not that recently. So what we're going to do is it's not going to be exactly the answers from the book. It's going to be my perspective from the questions, from the way that I've lived life, my experiences, and everything else. And that's how I'll be answering the questions today. So you ready? Are you ready? Have some fun? All right, what's the first one? Let's dive in.
What does Hill mean by drifting? And how have you seen it show up in your own life or leadership?
Wow. Drifting, powerful concept that I couldn't agree more. And that's part of what's in this Date Zero journal, through taking actions every day through gratitude and rewiring the way that we live life. So when we say, do you feel like you're living the same day over and over again? Like life just, you're almost like in this hypnotic state and you don't really have control of your life, or you're living somebody else's life, or you're just kind of on like this autopilot. That's really drifting. And it could be these habits that we unintentionally create for our lives that aren't maybe in alignment with our highest self, that end up having this compound effect. And the more that we drift, the farther away that we can get. We drift away from our alignment and our purpose as human beings and living with that intention. So the biggest thing we can do to offset and reestablish ourselves is live with purpose and intention. In the book, that's what the devil talks about, is what he loves is when people don't show up with intention, when people don't show up. So if you want to drift, you want to live in alignment with the devil, don't have an understanding of what your purpose is, and don't live with intention, and allow yourself to drift away into whatever that may be in the world. And that's how you become influenced. That's how you become a sheep. That is what that refers to in my view.
It's a great answer.
Thanks.
Next question. Where in your current journey are you most vulnerable to drifting? And how are you anchoring back into intentionality?
Where in my current journey am I most vulnerable to anchoring
To
or
drifting.
to drifting?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I anchor back
To intention.
to intention? So, for me, sometimes I have a hard time with, I know I'm showing up with purpose and intention, and I want to help people. And when people don't understand it, or they don't buy into it, because obviously people are humans and they have reservations, and I don't like feeling like I'm having to sell somebody on like Date Zero and our journey that we're taking, and like having people understand the impact and importance of it, because I've experienced it. Sometimes that frustration, maybe a little bit of that ego, can have an impact, right? Like one of the things I've noticed about myself is I really have a desire to be, liked by people, or like appreciated by people. Maybe not liked, but appreciated for the things that I do. And when that doesn't happen, I could see that being a thing that could end up drifting me. Also, our relationship, my and your relationship, to me is so important. And we put a lot of pressure on that relationship. Look, we have a podcast. We've developed a whole, Date Zero program. It's not the Garin show. It's not the Yesi show. It's the Garin and Yesi. And we're building this together. And allowing, I think, some of that pressure that happens, when you're in a relationship and you're building something, because it's not always easy to build something. Actually, it's very difficult to take something from a seed and to water and watch it flourish. And if you even know, like yourself, when you're growing, the growing pains are painful. And there's times in that process that can be painful. And there's times in the process that can be messy and not perfect. And it's when you're developing something together with somebody, because in the book too, Outwitting the Devil, it says consciously, our conscious collective together. So when you have me and you, your two partners, all moving in the same direction with the same intention on that mission, it becomes unstoppable. That's what the devil says. That's in the book. It says once the collective conscious, you bring two people together or more, and you have a vision together, and you can pull knowledge from each other and help guide that journey to a different place, it becomes unstoppable. And so I would say that self-sabotaging during that process of getting there, where because it becomes painful, because it's difficult or whatever, you allow yourself not to operate at your highest self or allow the pain to come in the way of what the clear vision is, I would say that would probably be the biggest one.
What are your systems or rituals you've created to keep your mind sharp and avoid the devil's grip?
That's another great question. So my systems and rituals, I'm a big believer in systems and rituals. I'm not perfect on my systems or my rituals, but I'm always working to reestablish them and get better at them. One big thing that I'm a big believer is in the morning routine. I mean, that was the biggest premise that created a shift in my life. And I was working on that, for quite a while. And then I read a book by Robin Sharma, and I love Robin Sharma. Actually, Mr. Riley, I have written on a rock, just like my highest self persona is Mr. Riley. You can pull him directly from that book, The 5 a.m. Club. Shout out to him. I look forward to meeting you one day and having you on this podcast. So what I would say, what was the question one more time?
What are the systems or rituals you've created to keep your mind sharp and avoid the devil's grip? So
meditation is a big one, right? But having whatever it is that my morning routine is so I start my day with intention. So when I wake up, I visualize my day living a life of impact and intention. So impact is my word of the year. I created a word of the year. So when I wake up, I think about how today am I going to create impact. I visualize a day that's filled with impact, and then I get out of bed. I don't lay in bed. Have you ever known me to lay in bed? I don't lay in bed. I'm ready to start in the world. So then I start my morning. I love starting the morning. Dry sauna if that's possible. Read, meditate, and do a movement. So a movement could be breath, like taking 10 big, deep breaths, putting your hands on your hips, jumping up and down, or doing abs. We do ab workout in the morning together, but creating movement, creating intention, starting your morning that way. And there's a lot of different ways to structure your day. For me, starting my morning with intention, with working on the mind, the soul, physically working on those aspects, and then moving from there. And if you can, doing the same thing at night. I talk about bookending your days. So if you can start your day with purpose, end your day with purpose, purpose will circulate throughout your life.
Which environments or people make it easier or harder to stay disciplined and aligned with your higher self?
Which environments?
Environments or people?
Or people. That's a great question. We all have people in different seasons for different reasons. And so identifying what season you're in and what reason somebody's in your life can be extraordinarily important. And I think sometimes we get caught up in an obligation for our family or for friends. And we're on this journey, and maybe this journey is new to us. And we're climbing a mountain. And we desire to have in an ideal world, in the world that we consciously create, people that are climbing that mountain alongside of us and that can help lift that and maybe help take a little bit of that weight because you're growing it together, like how me and you are. But sometimes we have people in our lives and we feel an obligation to them. It could be family, it could be friends, that we're actually having to pull up that mountain with us. And maybe not even that we're pulling up that mountain and they're like dead weight. They could actually be trying to go the other way and pulling against us. And so identifying very clearly, it's that rule again, and it's a mirror for us, is our closest 5 relationships we have is who we are as people. It's a direct mirror. And that can shift over time. It doesn't mean that that's who you are all the time. That means in that period of time, that's where you are. But identifying why somebody's in your life, what is the purpose of that? And it's not transactional, it's relationship-wise. But for me to reach the part of myself that I desire to reach, what do I have to let go of for that to be the case? Because sometimes we can't carry 100 pounds up Mount Everest. Sometimes we have to be very particular to the ounce about what we're carrying with us. That's what I would say to that.
Hill identifies fear as the devil's greatest weapon. What fears have secretly driven past decisions, and how have you dismantled them?
Can you repeat that question one more time? Fear?
Hill identifies fear as the devil's greatest weapon.
Fear as the devil's greatest weapon.
What fears have secretly driven past decisions, and how have you dismantled them?
Man, it's a powerful question. Fear can create a prisoner of yourself in your own mind. And I've been a prisoner of myself in my own mind to a point where I actually did not want to live anymore. That's how far that took me. And it took some really big things to happen, some huge understandings and realizations and just these moments to break through and free from that. And fear is one of the tools the devil uses to control us. And fear is there's an acronym for it, but it's fear. What is it? I can't remember, but it really is fear is not real. It is what we create in the stories we tell ourselves in our mind. And if we welcome fear, if we open the door instead of fighting fear, instead of running from fear, because that's what I did for a long time. I had fear of loss, fear of failure, fear I was going to let people down, fear I was going to ruin relationships, fear people wouldn't respect me. And that drove a lot of my decisions. And you know where it drove it? Drove it straight into the place that I desired not to go, because I allowed fear to rule my life and who I was as a human being. And I made a decision at one point that I was not longer going to allow fear. And I've talked about that. That's the moment that I decided not to end my life and to go bungee jumping instead. And when I let go of fear, I made that leap, and I had that moment where I jumped and I leapt and I had no fear. And I let go of all the pain, all the anger, any resentment and everything that I had. But that was a devil that was creating that loop within me. And I had to break through and get to the point where, like, I was willing to no longer exist to break free of that. And that was a very difficult place to get to. And what I would say is, like, when we feel that much fear, instead of fighting that, open that door. Welcome fear in with you. Allow fear to be your friend. And understand when you feel that fear, lean into it. Embrace that. And change that relationship that you have with fear.
Which societal norms or educational truths are most dangerous in creating obedient drifters?
Ooh. So that's the one thing in this book that I really enjoyed because I do believe and I resonate with Hill a lot. Napoleon Hill, I think, is a trailblazer, and he has an incredible way to understand the world and really communicate it, in a way for people to understand. One thing that he talks about, and I think people are becoming more awakened to, is both schools and churches and how they create obedient people that are created in a system that are not trained to think for themselves. So part of it is not being an independent thinker. And we just all experienced this through a pandemic, through COVID, through people just following suit and that social pressure that was exerted on so many people so harshly to make decisions that they probably would have never made otherwise and weren't in alignment. And you had so many people that were very smart telling people to do stuff that they had no idea or no reason to be doing. And people just follow suit because we've trained people through our schooling system and churches, as could be in there. And he talks about that as well, to not be free thinkers, to not understand what is the purpose of this, what is the outcome that's working to create. Instead, I'm saying this, so I have to follow this blindly. And that could be the biggest blessing to the devil and the biggest thing to hold you back from you being able to be in alignment and go create and go accept fear and be fear's friend and all those things that we're talking about. Last thing you want to do is just do things because that's what everybody else is doing. When I see everybody running that way, believe I'm going to go the other way. That's just how I'm built. That's how my mind works, and so there's a lot of examples of this. And when you take a moment and you're able to zoom out and see things for what they are, the view looks a lot different.
What role does gratitude play in transforming fear into power in your life in Gynergy's movement?
What role has gratitude played in changing fear into power? My role in gratitude's and Gynergy's movement.
In your life and in Gynergy's
movement. In my life, in Gynergy's movement. Man, gratitude. Gratitude is, to me, when you talk about all the religions in the world, you talk about whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, all of them, Islam, they all have a central key part, and that is, and I believe it correlates throughout everything in humanity, past all religions and everything else, is gratitude. And when we live a life where we stop looking at it from what we don't have, we stop looking at it from a lack of, and we start looking at all the things that are around us that are so beautiful, that all the blessings that we have that we just every day take for granted. The fact that I have legs to walk on and I'm healthy, that I have water to drink, food to eat, that I have people that I can talk to and connect with, that I'm not in constant fear for my life, and I have the ability to go create whatever it is that I desire to in whatever way, even though there may be obstacles to go do that. That is extraordinarily powerful. And I think sometimes that we can get caught up in all the little things that don't go our way, or all the little things that isn't perfect, and we're caught up in this framework of things have to be this way or they're bad, and they're not. And the power of gratitude and looking at it from that perspective, where this breath that I take is so valuable. Because if I didn't have that breath in that moment and I couldn't breathe, all I would care about is whether I had that oxygen to breathe or not. That water that I drink is so soothing and hydrating. If I didn't have water, all I would think about and be searching for is that water. The fact is that we have so much of abundance around us all the time, that the more abundance sometimes we have, the more that we don't believe we have any. And we start seeking things that are so far outside of what really matters to us and what those core values are. And if we could just go to the beach and watch the sunset, feel the sand on our feet and that sun on our skin and the birds chirping as they fly by, that is the biggest blessings. And those don't cost anything. And I know if I've been in this journey of, going to create and I want all the things, and I grew up not with a lot, and I seen other people that had a lot, and I always desired that because it made me feel less than. And once I had that, what I realized is that is not at all the stuff that matters in life. What matters is the connections that we have to the people that we love. What matters is how we show up as human beings, what our value systems are. What matters is, are we present in the moments? Or are we disconnected from ourselves and our truth? Are we living a life of purpose, or are we lost? And for me, living a life of purpose is much more important than living a life that's for anything else.
What's your personal definition?
What's my personal definition of definiteness and purpose?
And how does it align with your mission to impact over 1 million lives?
Yeah, if you listen to me speak, which you do, unfortunately, you got to listen to me a lot, or maybe fortunately, whatever way you look at it. I talk about purpose every day, and I talk about impact every single day. And that stays with me every single day because it's my driving mission in this world. It wakes me up at 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, and it's what drives me through the stress, the pain, whatever it may be that I've experienced in life, and what, the weight that has been pulling me back that you cut. And I understand that every morning there's a sun that rises that's a new sun and a new day and a new opportunity to create the impact and change the course of what has been happening before. And with every day, knowing that there's an opportunity to change the course of what's been happening before, and not fearing the past and being present in the moment, it gives you an unstoppable ability to connect and be present and create those outcomes that you envision in your mind. And because I've almost died a couple times in my life, I don't have any fear around what may happen from it, because nothing's going to be more painful than the pain of the prison that I already put myself in my mind. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to live without that fear and welcome the fear and make fear my friend and have fear be with me as I drive towards creating the impact. And I'm going to be present in the moment, and I'm going to focus on controlling the things that I am able to control. The things that I cannot control, the pain from the past, the stuff that may happen that's coming at me that I have no idea about. I'll handle that when I have to handle it. And I'll address that head on, and I'll continue to move. And as long as I live a life of purpose, of intention, of passion, of connection, then when I pass, I know I lived a life well lived, and I will die feeling fulfilled to what that calling is. And I think one of the things that we see is, if like Steve Jobs, he's on our coffee stand or whatever it is his book with his photo. And I look at him every day, and me and him actually have conversations. But one thing that he talks about in his, dying days is it's not all the stuff that he built, it's the connections that he made with people. It's living with purpose and family, and all of that is what was much more important to him than actually wealth and the success and the awards and the accolades and all of that. So how do you create a ripple effect? How do you create impact? Those are the things that drive me.
How do you protect your vision from delusion, distraction, or compromise?
So vision and delusion, I think you have to be delusional about your vision.
Not delusion. Dilution.
Oh, dilution.
Dilution.
Dilution. So how do you protect your vision from dilution,
Distraction or
distraction,
compromise?
or compromise? How I protect my vision from dilution, distraction, or compromise is I've done that before. I had a vision for a company that was beautiful, had a huge impact with people, was very successful, and I allowed it to be diluted by distracted and what was the other one?
Compromise.
And compromised because I was not prepared to withstand the storms that were gifted to me. And I say gifted because everything in life, good or bad, is a gift because that's what crafts us to be who we are as human beings in this human experience. And I've grown so much from those gifts. And they were the most painful learning lessons that I could ever go through as I'm building a company that I had 100 plus employees doing millions in revenue and became so much out of alignment. It became so compromised, and I allowed that vision to be diluted in such a grossly mismanaged way, and I didn't know how to solve it. And it nearly killed me. It nearly broke me. And through those learning experiences, I had to rebuild myself brick by brick, the foundation of who I am as a human being, what it is that my value center is, what my purpose is, what's important to me, what's not, how to communicate with people, how to really communicate with people on tough things, on tough conversations, and how to get people in alignment with the vision. Those are all very difficult things to do, and I had to go through that part to open up the opportunity to be here right now and to craft Gynergy and to be prepared for what the impact that Gynergy is going to have. Because if I wasn't that person, some of those things of who I was with my childhood trauma and the stuff that when things were so difficult that brought out in me that I hadn't yet healed, would still be here. And we're talking about changing people's lives and having that level of responsibility. You have to show up. You can't have not went through those trials and tribulations. God wouldn't be speaking to me in the ear like he is right now and driven with that purpose if I hadn't gone through all the things that I have in life, because I have had multiple of those. And so now that's what's catalyst to continue, and then having you and you being a part of this mission with me, because you are that lighthouse. You are that truth. You are that light that shines through that darkness as well. And so to be able to bounce these things as I start to maybe get off track or off to right field or take things, allow my ego to get in the way of that, to have you in the same vision and on the same mission and on that pathway together, being very much in alignment with our values and who we are as human beings, that I think is one of the most powerful parts.
How has having a clearly defined mission accelerate your influence, decision making, or inner peace?
Having a clearly defined mission accelerates everything because it allows you to move with purpose, and it allows when things that may have bothered you in a different sense not really matter. Because when you move with purpose and an intention, the rest of this stuff becomes trivial, even though they may have a small impact along the way. I look at things more from a 10, 20-year viewpoint than a right now, 1 year, month, day, whatever else. And that can have maybe some negative impacts as well, because I have such a bigger vision of this. But overall, it allows me to put things in perspective in a much different way. Sometimes we get so drawn in and caught up to right here, right now, and not understanding that that's all part of the process. And so having trust that your actions and your movements, if you know that they're in alignment, are going to create the results, and not being stuck or tied directly to what those results are, knowing the universe are going to provide opportunities and people in your life that are also going to be in that mission, because like attracts alike. And the further that you go down this mission, the more that is going to be attracted to you. That is going to be extraordinarily powerful for you and for me.
If you were to name your version of the devil, what form has it taken in your personal or professional life?
Yeah, so the devil, this book does a great job of breaking down the devil and how it operates. Napoleon Hill and the way that he did this and with the devil. I mean, I really believe he's speaking to the devil and understanding this in that way. But Mike Tyson said a great quote. He said, when you're creating success, you're going to go to the dance, leave with the person that you took to the dance, right? So if being in alignment with purpose and God or whatever it may be, gratitude or whatever your thing is that has got you to a certain point, that is when the devil is going to come at you in the most maybe unsuspecting way and try different things. That's when you're going to be the most vulnerable to the way that he attacks you, whether it's through your ego, whether it's through your insecurities, whether it's through your traumas and your wounds. But the devil is going to come for you at that point. And so being in alignment with your values, understanding them very clearly and building a foundation that's strong and having people that are in direct alignment is one of the biggest things, having people that are in direct alignment with those values so that when you do start to slip, you have somebody to hold their hand, somebody to bounce those ideas off of, those thoughts, and being vulnerable. When you can come from a place of vulnerability, and I say masculinity is confident vulnerability, when you can come from that place, that's when you can really drive the outcomes and allow the devil to go fuck off and not be part of your life. And that becomes very clear when you understand your negotiables and non-negotiables.
What internal dialogue or limiting beliefs have you had to outwit to step into your highest potential?
What internal dialogue or limiting beliefs have I had to? Wow, I've had a lot. I think a big part of my growth is because I, had to work through being so broken. And so when you have to work through being so broken, you develop, it gives you a gift because you have to work at things that other people may be normal for. And then once you catch up to being normal, you continue those same habits and rituals, and that creates that outcome for you. Then you start separating.
Yeah.
For me, I've had a lot of self-doubt and self-hatred and in my life. And, I think starting at a little kid and, having a mom that, unfortunately where she was in her life, she made decisions around, choosing drugs and living her life in a different way than raising her son. And I don't hold that against her. Me and her have been through some things and had those conversations, and I've forgiven her. And I understand now it's like that had nothing to do with me. That had everything to do with her childhood and the traumas and everything and the wounds that she was carrying. And it took me to go through a lot to get to that perspective, But what I would say is like, having that self-hate where I just didn't never feel like I was enough, and even the way that I talk to myself, it was so bad, and putting in things. And, I know one of the things is like, not that long ago, I'd be like, I hate my life. I'd just be in the shower out of nowhere. I'd be like, I hate my life. And then I started training myself. When I heard myself say that, I'd be like, I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. And I would do it 10 times. I would say it over and over again. And it finally conditioned myself to not say that anymore. Because I do believe that what we say and how, my mind is like, I envision it like I said, fortress. And I have these thoughts that come in that may be limiting beliefs. I have these thoughts that come in that may be negative self-talk. And I have these snipers that are up on the roof line that when they see those coming in, they snipe that. And so this is protected around here because this is our temple. This is the biggest thing. And what we allow inside of us, we are what we think we are. And just like Henry Ford has all those famous quotes, well, you think you can do, you can do, and whatever they are, right? Like, they're very simple, but very powerful. It's what we believe we are, we are. And if we allow ourselves to doubt ourselves, it's natural to do that. But if we have that negative perception, that self-talk, if we expect that things aren't going to work out for us, guess what's going to happen? We're going to create that because it's self-sabotage. Because we're going to create a life that we expect of ourselves. So breaking free of that and really focusing in on, what the opportunities and realities are, and stretching that and be inspired by people and reading and consuming information is the biggest way to offset that. I think being a student, keeping that childlike curiosity, it's a huge difference.
Describe a moment where you felt the devil was close and the decisive action that reclaimed your power.
Yeah, I mean, the moment that the devil was closest is when I was about to jump in my life. And the decisive action that I took was feeling this feeling over me. And I don't know, I believe it was my dad, and it was just this of like, I'm not going to allow this to win. I'm not going to allow this to define who I am as a human being. And I decided in that moment, like, every day I'm going to live is a bonus day. Every day that I'm going to live from now on, I'm not going to live with this fear. I'm not going to live with this anger and regret and this self-hatred that I feel. And I'm going to live within alignment. And it took me that dark of a place to become free from it and to detach myself from the devil.
Hill's concept of hypnotic rhythm is both mystical and mechanical. How does this idea align with Gynergy's framework with like level 5 life or DGAs?
Hypnotic rhythm. I think this is something that needs to be talked about more. And I think it's very powerful, the concept of hypnotic rhythm. And it's basically, without even unbeknownst to me, as I'm developing out, Gynergy and Date Zero and taking action through gratitude and rewiring your brain to create these micro wins. That's exactly what he's talking about, is we get caught up so much living in the same day over and over and over again, from waking up, having a cigarette, or, eating food that doesn't align with us, it's not good for us, to, our drives and what we listen to and intake in our body, and, just all the friendships that we cultivate and what the intention is behind them. All these things that we do, that if we just took ourselves out of it and we introduced it, we would be like, whoa, what the is this? This is not. But because we've walked into this rhythm of like just falling into it, and it becomes a norm. It's like the first time when you're in a city and you see a homeless person, it's like, wow, that's not right. Why is there a homeless person here? You have questions. You want to understand it. You want to dive into it. You want to, maybe create some sort of outcome to change it. Like, as a human being, it, has a pull on you. But then as you see it over and over and over and over again, you become more and more disconnected from it. Same like with children and abuse and like this stuff that should not be okay with humanity. We become accustomed to stuff that should never be accustomed to. And that's this rhythm that we get into in our own personal lives, that we start living these days, developing these habits. And a lot of times it takes something this hurts so fucking bad before we can break free from it, or we never do. And so that's when you see people that, they retire at 65 and then they die shortly after, and they actually never lived their life because they were in that hypnotic rhythm. Or they lived a life that wasn't in alignment with themselves. They didn't live them, and they had full of regrets. That's that hypnotic rhythm. So there's so many examples of that currently going on in society. And I would say, a big part that can break free from that is service. Doing something through gratitude, going down, and we go down to Mexico through Day Zero. We build houses for families. You see the impact that it creates in 3 days. You change somebody's whole lineage of their family, and you see the gratitude that it comes from that. You experience that with the other people, and you build this community. And it's such a beautiful, strong thing to create. And the only thing that holds us back from that is ourself. And you can explain it to somebody, but they're caught in that hypnotic rhythm. And they keep living that same day over and over again instead of breaking free and having something that awakens them. And so sometimes it takes hitting the bottom, but the hope is that we can create a movement through Date Zero, through Gynergy, through books like Outwitting the Devil and every incredible thing Napoleon Hill has done, all the other incredible writers and leaders and people that are moving into that part of life can awaken. There's a lot of people right now that are just being led and not led in the right way.
How do you balance spiritual guidance with tactical execution when building a movement or business?
Wow. How do you balance spiritual guidance with tactical execution while building a movement or business? Wow, that's a really, really great question, and it's a really powerful question, and that's probably one of the most difficult things to do. The most important one is being authentic, being genuine and authentic, and in vulnerability. If you're not genuine, you're not vulnerable, and you're authentic, you can build something like that for a moment in time, but you're not going to sustain any of it. And so leading with vulnerability, that genuineness, the authenticness, but that takes a lot because you really have to be in 100% alignment with what your purpose is. So if that's your goal and you're working to build that, and I know that's what we're working to build with Gynergy and the movement that we're creating, but I would never be able to do it. And I tried to do it before because it's just how my mind works. And in the way that I always want to build something that's bigger than myself. But I wasn't in 100% in alignment. And if you're not in 100% in alignment when you're talking about something like that, where you have such a great responsibility to people and to yourself, then there's no possible way for sustainability. So, I keep saying it, but leading with vulnerability, I always say, again, masculinity is confident vulnerability, leadership, confident vulnerability. You have to lead from the front. You have to lead with purpose. So if you're leading, you're very clear on what the purpose is and the impact that you desire to create, and the negotiables and non-negotiables that go along with this. I don't know how many times it's something starts with good intentions but ends horribly bad. And that is because you don't clearly identify what your negotiables and non-negotiables are. And if you have those key things in, that could be the start to creating. And then I think timing is very important. I think for us right now that people are all the time disconnected from their purpose. They're in this hypnotic rhythm, and so breaking free of that. And you have to do it in a selfless way, because every time you try to grab onto or you try to do something, for like some other purpose or your ego or whatever it is, like it doesn't resonate right. And it creates this resistance. I've noticed it all the time. When I'm doing things for that pure purpose of it, it opens up and there's little to no resistance. Frankly, there's a tailwind that happens. As soon as you start putting your ego into it, start putting your desires into it, which means that you have to let go, and then maybe it doesn't play out exactly how you envision, and you have to be okay with that. That then gives you the opportunity to create something like that. But that is a really difficult thing.
What's the cost of inaction when someone doesn't outwit the devil in their life?
What's the cost of inaction when what?
When someone doesn't outwit the devil.
When someone doesn't outwit So action is the biggest way to create movement. Movement is the best way to drive forward into understanding what purpose is, right? And so you can you can take action and it be out of alignment, but at least taking action will send you into a wall or send you somewhere that gives you information back to redirect you. And so just depending on how many times you have to hit the wall and hurt yourself before you make that redirection, once you make that redirection, it opens up all these different opportunities for you to continue to create and move momentum forward. I'm sure the devil loves inaction because inaction is very controllable. I can put you in a box. I can take you around. I can, kind of put you in whatever situation that I want to, and you're not going to do nothing about it. You're not going to change it. So taking action, even if you're unsure of the action, and using the feedback that you get from taking that action is much more powerful to offset the devil than not taking because you're unsure. The devil actually wants you to be unsure. It wants you to have all that negative self-talk. That is the devil.
That was the last question.
Oh, that was the last question? Okay, well, we just went through how many questions?
16.
16 questions. You feel like that was insightful?
Very powerful.
I feel like I just went, kind of into like a flow there for a little bit. And, I hope that this really resonated with you and you learned. A lot of this I learned from the book. It's my take on it. I don't know if it's exactly Napoleon Hill's take on, what he wrote in the book. I have listened to it. I think it resonates really big in our journey. I've read the book. I've listened to it on audio. I really love it. Napoleon Hill's, the name of the book is Outwitting the Devil. I would definitely recommend checking out that book. I mean, Napoleon Hill's a legend. And, if we can make any of the type of impact that he's made, we've lived a life well lived. So I appreciate it. That was another episode of the Gynergy Effect. If this resonated with you, please like, share. You can follow us on Instagram at the Gynergy Effect. You can follow me on Instagram at Garin Heslop. Follow Yesi at YesiFit_. Our website's gynergy.com, GYNERGY.com. And we'd love for you to be a part of this movement and create that ripple effect further. Let's go, everybody. Have a great day.
If this episode spoke to your soul,
share it with someone you love and tag us at the Gynergy Effect. We'd love to connect.
and remember, your energy is your power. Use it with intention.